All right, first problem says, this is practice quiz, section 1 to section 4. We're gonna write the equation of the line through these 2 points. And it says in parentheses, we're gonna use slope-intercept form. So I'm not gonna worry about that until the very end. That just tells me how I'm gonna write my answer. Okay. All right, so who knows how to start? What happens first? I gotta find the slope. Oops, take this out. I need to find the slope. So the slope, how do I find slope again? So 11 minus 5 over 1 minus negative 2.
Yes.
Right? So that will be 6 over 3, which is 2. So my slope is 2. Okay, you guys that came in late, we're wearing lanyards. Have you wear your lanyard? Okay, now what? What's the next step? Once I have my slope figured out, now what do I do? I pick a point, doesn't matter which one. So if I pick that one, y minus the y coordinate equals slope times x minus the x coordinate.
I think I put down in my car.
Okay, you'll need to run the technology.
Should I go now or should I wait for after class?
You need to run the technology right now,
Okay.
and then hurry back. That'll get you fixed up with the lanyard. Now, if it said point slope form, I would be done right here, right? But since it says slope intercept, I'm gonna go ahead and do my distributive. And then get the y by itself. So I got this. Does that look right?
Yes.
And that's the slope intercept form. So again, you just gotta pay attention to the directions. This would be point slope. And so I would stop right here if it said point slope form. But since it said slope intercept, I have to do these extra steps. Got it? Quiz question, guaranteed. Okay, number 2 is just a little inequality. We're gonna solve it. Okay. Okay, you can put it on. Thank you. Stop being acting weird. All right, what do I do now?
Would you subtract it, x divided by 6 over?
You
Would you multiply 6 over x?
No, you wouldn't do that because this isn't this isn't a multiplication here. This is a subtraction. You absolutely could subtract this over to the other side. You could. That would be absolutely right. I'm assuming you did all the arithmetic right. It would be fine. My suggestion to you when we did these in class was that we get rid of those fractions. And we got rid of them real easily by timesing by what? The common denominator, which is 30. Because if you multiply this by 30, and this by 30, and this by 30, if you multiply them all by 30, these are all going to cancel. 6 goes into 30 5 times, so now I have 5x. 5 goes into 30 6 times, and 2 goes into 30 15 times. So now I have a problem that's much easier to solve. Wouldn't you agree? That's just much easier than all those fractions floating around. So now, Brendan, I can subtract my 5x. And when I do that, I'm not losing this negative right here. That negative is staying right there with that 24. And I'll divide by 10. Now be careful. X is bigger than negative 12/5. I don't like having my x last. So this says negative 12/5 is less than x, which means x is bigger than negative 12/5. I didn't do any sign switching. I turned my whole problem around so that the x was first. Notice the arrow's pointing at the number and it's still pointing at the number, right? I didn't switch any signs. I just flipped the whole problem.
So if you didn't flip the whole problem, would you be counted off of that?
No, absolutely not. The problem is if I ask you to answer an interval notation, you need to make sure,
The X is first.
well, because when you graph it, the x needs to be first.
Okay.
Because that tells you which way your arrow's going.
Yeah.
If it's this way, you might get your arrow going the wrong way.
Mhm.
So this is right. There's nothing wrong with having it backwards,
Yeah.
but it makes graphing a little bit more
Easier.
tricky.
Yeah.
If you don't have it turned around. So, once I figured out this is what the graph looks like, then if I had to write an interval notation, I could say negative 12/5, comma, positive infinity, because it's going that way, toward positive infinity. Which actually is the answer to number 3, right? Write your answer in interval notation. So this would be the answer to problem number 3. Remember, if you're going this way, this is positive infinity. If you're going this way, this is negative infinity.
Would we have to graph that? I mean, not graph it, but put it on the line.
You don't have to. I always do because it helps me get my interval right.
Yeah.
But no, it's not a requirement.
Okay.
I like to do stuff so I get the right answer. All right, next. What does this mean? What am I talking about when they say find that? The distance. The distance. And how do we find distance on the number line? Distance formula, which is our big radical, right? And what goes underneath, we have to have this memorized. Not the letters, just what numbers am I going to put underneath here? 6 minus 1 squared, very good. Plus 3 minus 2 squared. So remember, we take our x's, and you can do it in either order. I did 6 minus 1, and I squared it. And then I'm going to do 3 minus 2, and I'm going to square it. And then I'll just do the arithmetic now. So what's 6 minus 1? Squared is 25. 3 minus 2 is 1. Squared is 1. So the square root of 26. You can't reduce that. So the answer is just root 26. There's nothing to do with that. Remember, if you're going to simplify, you have to have 2 of something. What's 26? 2 times 13, right? 2 times 13, you don't have 2 of anything. You have to have 2 times 2 times 13 or something like that. So that doesn't break down. So that's just your answer. Now, if it does break down, if you had gotten, let's say, root 28, then you would have to break it down. And that would be 2 root 7. If that is not the answer, but if that had come out to be the answer, you would have to break that radical down. All right. And this is, I think we had this on our last quiz, but maybe not.
Yes, we did.
Exponent simplification. So here we go. What are you thinking about when you look at this?
Simplify it.
Well, yes, definitely we're gonna simplify it. And we need to take care of that, right? That negative right there, he's the only negative in all of that mess, so we'll take this up to the top. But wait, there's 10 already up there.
Yeah, you just add
So
it
we make it
on.
14, because if there's 10 already up there and we're bringing up 4 more, now we're gonna have 14.
Yes.
So we have y to the 14th on the top. Now we're not our Z since I'm over here. What's going on there? We have 3 on the top and 11 on the bottom. So some will cancel
Yes.
and leave me with
Z
Z to the 8th on the bottom. They're on the bottom because you have more on the bottom than on the top. Now the X's is just the opposite. You have more on the top. How many more are on the top?
3.
So we're gonna have X to the 3rd on the top. And then what do I do with these two guys? Anything?
Yeah, just simplify.
This is just like a regular run-of-the-mill fraction, kids. They're not exponents. They're just, it's just 4/6. So what do we do with 4/6? Reduce it to 2/3. And there's our answer. Okay? So tomorrow, right? I see
Yes.
tomorrow. Tomorrow, we have a quiz and it will have it may not be this many problems, might be this many problems, but these are the problems. Okay? So this is what you need to know. So if you don't know any of that, tonight's the night to practice. Work on it. No, those are yours to keep. Yes? You don't, you have to take it when you get back, okay? When you get back, yep. Okay. Okay, so now we are going to pick up with our notes, finish up P5, so we can get that homework turned in one of these days soon, and start P6.